Okay, we have x defined as 3 sine t and y defined as 6 cosine t. And we are hoping to sketch a graph of this. So let's draw our coordinate plane here. We have our x and our y. Now notice x is 3 sine t. And what do we know about 3 sine t? Well, it's cyclical, and it's going to go between -3 and 3, because we see that the amplitude of this sine function is 3. So our x value then is going to go between -3 and 3. We can just label those two values, -3 and 3. Okay. Now, what do we know about 6 cosine t, our y value? Well, that's going to go between -6 and 6, because we see that amplitude of 6 here, and it's also cyclical, so it's just going to keep going back and forth between -6 and 6. X is going to go between -3 and 3, -3 and 3. Y of t is going to go between 6 and -6, 6 and -6. So let's put those on here now. There's 6, and here's -6. And so then this is just going to form a nice ellipse. Oh my gosh. I had to pause the video to draw this to take the pressure off, but there it is, okay? And so we see we have a semi-minor axis of 3 and a semi-major axis of 6. All right, this is an ellipse that is stretched vertically because the y value has a bigger amplitude. So now we need to talk direction. So let's think about what x of 0 and y of 0 are. So let's do x of 0 and y of 0. So x of 0, well, sine is the y value in the unit circle, right? So sine starts as being 0 when the input is 0. So x starts as being 0. Cosine starts as being 1 when the input is 0. So 1 times 6 is going to be 6. So y of 0 is 6. So the starting point on this curve is going to be at x equals 0, y equals 6, which is up here. Okay, so then now let's think about what direction we're moving by plugging in pi over 2. And we're going to plug in pi over 2 because that's like where the quadrant is divided in the unit circle, right? So we'll plug in pi over 2 next. X of pi over 2 and y of pi over 2. Okay, so what is sine of pi over 2? Well, sine of pi over 2 is 1, so we're going to have 3 times 1, which equals 3. And then cosine of pi over 2 is actually 0, right? That's that is where we're like pointing straight up, so the x value of the unit circle is 0. So cosine of pi over 2 is 0 times 6 is still 0. So we're now at the point x equals 3, y equals 0, which is down here. So we have moved from here to here, which means that we must be going this direction. Okay, so we are going clockwise as this object moves in the elliptical path. So then now let's do B. Normally my iPad lets me go to a new page, but it is acting up right now. So we are going to just do it over here. B, x of t is equal to 8 cosine t. And y of t is equal to 8 sine t. Okay, so this is easy because the amplitude of both of them is the same. They're both 8. So x is going to go between 8 and -8, and y is going to go between 8 and -8. So when we draw this, we just have to label these points. All right, this is 8, -8, -8, 8. And we just end up with a circle of radius 8. Nice circle. Hey, that wasn't too bad for the first try. Give me props for that. Okay, so similar reasoning to over here. When x was 0, or when t was 0, x was 0, and y was 0, or t was 0, y was 6. Okay, well here, it's going to be reversed because before we had x was sine, y is cosine, but here x is cosine, y is sine. So cosine of 0 is just 1. So at t equals 0, we're going to be at the point 8, 0, because Cosine is 1 at t equals 0. Sine is 0 at t equals 0. So we are going to start right here at 8 comma 0. But then at pi over 2, cosine of pi over 2 is 0, sine of pi over 2 is 1, so we're going to be at 0 comma 8, which is up here. So which direction are we moving? We're going that way. We are going like this. So we are going counterclockwise. So we'll draw the arrow to show we know we're going counterclockwise. Okay, that's it.